As you all know, we are in the midst of the 2020 election, and we all know that the presidential candidates are grabbing all of the headlines, which is typical. However, we also have to focus on the down ticket, and that, my fellow members, are the state and local races like the state senate, the assembly, propositions, city councils, measures, school boards. And by the way, the vote by mail ballots will be mailed out beginning today. We are fortunate to have two people who are literally in their busiest work cycle. The first person I'd like to introduce is Liza Negrete. She is the Vice President of Political Affairs at the California Association of REALTORS. Liza is the lead political strategist for the California Association of REALTORS, the most politically influential business trade association in the state, representing 200,000 members. Under Liza's leadership, CAR is the only business group able to organize member-driven grassroots efforts in support of candidates. CAR is known to take on tough races, and this earned Liza's recognition in Cal Newsroom's list of the Capital's 100 best and brightest, where she was described as the director of more money than God and willing to spend it. Liza joined CAR in 2007. She is passionate for democracy and empowering others to lead. She's a graduate of California State University, Sacramento, and is currently in her last year of law school at McGeorge School of Law. And she is a mother of a 6-month-old son, if I got that correctly, and his name is Dante Emmanuel. Our next panelist is Sanjay Weigel, the Senior Vice President for Governmental Affairs at California Association of Realtors. Sanjay is the association's chief lobbyist and supervises the policy and political work of the Government Affairs Department. The Governmental Affairs team includes advocates who work to advance the policy and political goals of the association. Sanjay has been with California Association of Realtors since 2003. However, he started his career there as an attorney in CAR's Member Legal Services Department in Los Angeles. That's also known as the Legal Hotline, which I call a lot, by the way. Before joining the Governmental Affairs team in Sacramento in 2016, Sanjay received his law degree from the University of Southern California, an MA from UCLA, and his BA from the University of Chicago. He is the father of a 2-year-old son named Arjun. Now let's welcome our very own Carter Nelson and Aaron Teague from SAR Governmental Affairs. They're going to facilitate the process and also facilitate the question and answers. So Aaron, take it away, or Carter.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Liza and Sanjay, for joining us today. We know it is a very busy time of year for both of you. Not only are we in the midst of the end of legislative cycle and election cycle and CAR meetings, you took the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us, and we really, really appreciate that. And Liza, hang in there for that last year of of law school. I actually, close to my heart, I had my oldest daughter when I was in my last year of law school as well. So I know it can be a challenging path, but hang in there, you're almost there. So just to kick us off this morning, if the both of you could just take a few minutes to share with us kind of your feelings about the political landscape from the statewide perspective. I know everyone here gets to hear me ramble on a lot about local politics, but kind of what you're seeing around the state would be really helpful to just kind of give us the lay of the land of what you're seeing right now, especially with all the different moving parts and factors that are happening.
I'll go ahead and start, if that's okay, Sanjay. Statewide, it's a presidential general election. What that means politically is that a higher voter turnout is expected. In California, that tends to favor Democratic candidates. And so we are looking at all the state and assembly and Senate races where we are playing, and we see that a lot of the seats that have been long targeted by the Democrats are in a position to be turned blue. And, you know, we currently have a double supermajority, and that means that this general election may make the legislature even bluer than it already is. So one of the things that we've tried to do is to involve ourselves in safe Democratic races where we can also help to select the Democrat that might be more business friendly. The other thing to consider is, since the legislature has become a double supermajority environment, a lot of groups, including business groups, have actually abandoned giving to the Republican Party as well as Republican candidates, because when you consider pushing legislation in the Capitol, and if you don't need any Republican votes, then there's really no reason to invest in Republican candidates, particularly if you have a very small budget. And so there are a lot of folks that have abandoned giving to the Republican Party. So the California GOP is in a very vulnerable state. And based on what we can see, it's only going to get weaker in California. Now, that doesn't mean that's, you know, what's going to happen nationwide, but California is going to get bluer after the election.
So I guess I'll chime in, which makes it more and more exciting for us. And, you know, hold on, am I frozen? Hold on.
You're good.
Okay. If I occasionally stop video, it might just be for that reason. Yeah, so as Liza mentioned, we deal with a very challenging environment because we do have double supermajorities in both the Assembly and in the Senate, and especially in the Assembly. Again, just hearing the numbers, I think, always makes it just so clear. In the Assembly, it's currently 61 Democrats and 17 Republicans, with 1 independent and 1 vacancy. And the independent is a former Republican. So that just gives you a sense of things. Remember, to pass a majority vote bill, which would include, say, the repeal of Costa-Hawkins and basically anything that's not a tax, you just need 41 members. They can cut 20 people who can vote no on a law. So, I mean, you can actually have, like, on a controversial thing like Costa-Hawkins, they can get their 41 and have 20 people go home and say, I stood up to that leadership, right? Because they don't need those votes. On the Senate side, it's not as big, but it's still significant. It's 29 Democrats to 11 Republicans, which is still fairly significant. And you only need 21 to pass a bill. So, you know, if it's a really contentious thing for us, that tends to be where we will often concentrate our efforts if we have an important bill that we oppose. But even given this, it's unfair to just think of it as red and blue. And I'm sure Liza might touch on this later. Really what it is there's a number of candidates and, members in both parties who are kind of what we are moderates, especially these days on the Democratic side. As Liza mentioned, a lot of the business groups are no longer giving to Republicans or giving trivial sums to the Republican Party. Really where they're concentrating is on moderate Democrats, because in a lot of these races, it's going to be Democrat versus Democrat in the final election, and moderate Democrat gets the moderate Democrats and then the Republicans, the remaining Republicans in that area, to vote for the moderate. And can you still, on a bad bill, still defeat it? Yes. And the example I would use this year, which frankly, I'll be honest, I was surprised when we succeeded. There was a bill, AB 2501 by Limon, which was at first glance, oh, it's not such a bad thing, mortgage forbearance, but it was just so extreme that it potentially could have raised the cost of financing in California, because it was so complicated and so difficult for the lenders. So we opposed it primarily on that basis, along with the bankers groups. Personally, I do think our argument was probably the stronger one, which helped people understand the law, which is, listen, this is a time of great low interest rates for refinancing and buying homes for people, suddenly making it somewhat affordable, or at minimum, reducing your payments during this time. And you're going to make this more expensive potentially. Not only that, there were some constitutional issues, but we actually were able to beat that in the assembly. So they couldn't even get to 41 on that. So it can happen, but it's difficult. It's very, and even in that situation, we were all like, oh my gosh, it actually, wow, they couldn't hit 41. But in a way, and by the way, this is something we're seeing as an organization, we've been doing more legislatively, is sort of arguing almost a consumer protection argument on a number of things. Like we had a PACE bill that went through this year, AB 1551, where that's been an area where we're trying to sort of argue that these are consumer protections. And I think that's what helped us on that Lennon bill, is that that's something that's going to hurt the consumer. So to the extent that argument can be made, that does help us because it pulls in allies who may not otherwise have been there. But so yes, challenging environment with a double supermajority though. And if the Democratic caucus decides to stick together, they can just do whatever they want. So that's what you need to keep in mind.
Well, that's very helpful information. Thank you. I know that we're going to have some questions about Prop 19 and want some information, but before I get to that part, just want to do a quick reminder to everyone who's tuning in. If you have a question that you would like to pose to either of our panelists today, please use the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to leave some time for some questions and answers. But the next question I'm going to kick to Liza. So you talked about Democrats that are more business friendly, and I know we often talk about the Realtor Party. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you're talking to candidates, and when you actually, what's sort of the evaluation that CAR goes through when they're evaluating a candidate, and what, moves them over to that support?
Sure. There's two types of things we look for. One is we want to know where the candidate stands on issues that we care about. And that is very important. We have to know where people stand, and usually we don't ask where people stand to scrutinize them and publicly, humiliate them if they take a vote that doesn't align with anything they've told us. Although a lot of groups do that. They'll have candidates fill out a questionnaire, record them, giving their responses, and then if they vote in a way that is not matching to that questionnaire, they will publish, not only the questionnaire, and they will also publish the video, and they really put people or candidates in a corner when doing that. So for example, there are candidates that take a pledge not to take realtor money. So, we may like them, but they've already made a pledge to other groups that they won't take our money. When realtors are involved in a race, we are known as developers. Well, who's known to be a developer and in real estate? President Trump. So in any safe Democratic seats, anytime we're involved pushing for the more moderate candidate, we often, get tagged as developers, same as Trump. And that could really hurt the messaging that we are giving the candidate, particularly in big cities, LA, San Francisco, where there's a lot of political plays happening all the time. Additionally, we also want to make sure the candidate is viable. We can love a candidate all we want, but if that candidate has no chance of winning, we really are going to be wasting resources. So we go through a viability test to make sure that the candidate is even worth considering. And we call that the 4 C's. So we look at cash on hand, how much money has a candidate raised? If any of you have ever written checks to a candidate, you know how powerful it is for a person to be persuaded to write a check. If you are willing to write a check, that means that you really believe in that candidate. And so we really take that into consideration. It also tells us that that candidate's messaging is selling to the voters in the area. So we look at cash and how much money they've raised. We look at character. Character for us means, what are their supports, the support they receive, the endorsements. What does that tell us as a whole about the candidate? Meaning, do they have, the endorsement of California Teachers Association, SEIU, Tenants Together? there are signals there that tell us where those candidates may stand, because we know that those groups might be the ones that are cornering candidates to answer questionnaires and lock them into specific policy positions. After character, and actually we also do order public information about the candidates. And so we look at their support and endorsement list, and we look at everything they've said publicly about themselves and see whether it matches or if there's a disconnect there, to just see how it all comes together. So cash, character, connections, who do they know in the industry? What are people saying? It is very important. You know, as realtors, you all experience that. People develop a reputation in the industry, you know, and sometimes you hear the same things about someone, and that could be good or bad, but it really creates a perception of what that person may be. And so we take that very seriously. And not only, you know, what people at the, in their district may say, but also what the chatter is in Sacramento after people meet them. You know, we've interviewed candidates, and there have been candidates that cry in the interviews. You know, did it only happen during our interview, or did it happen in someone else's? What does that tell us about those candidates? And then we look at the competition. So after we look at cash, character, connections, we say, okay, in these three categories, how do they compare to the other candidates? You know, someone may have raised $100,000, and that's fantastic. But then you look at the competition, and the competition may have raised $500,000. The $100,000 doesn't look so great anymore. So we go through that viability process to even see if the candidates have a chance of winning. When you do that, you can predict about 90% of the races in the election, and then there will be 10%, at least statewide, that will be very competitive. And so we are very pragmatic about making sure that we balance out the viability of a candidate with what they believe in. Sometimes we have to kind of plug our nose and say, we know this candidate's going to win. This person does not agree with us on a lot of issues, but they're going to win. So we might as well begin to establish the relationship now.
Great, thank you. I know one of the things, Carter, I just got off a phone call this morning where we were all reiterating the follow the money piece and finding the reports, and Carter has been diligently doing that at the local level for us, which has been somewhat of a challenging process. So we're kind of following that same strategy here as well. Thank you. Just to answer one quick question that's in the Q&A box right now, SAR will be putting out a voter guide that will talk about the propositions and local measures that's coming forward. So that information is forthcoming. We're actually holding back on it because we're waiting for the CAR board meeting to happen this Friday. So that piece is going to be ready to go for our members. So that will be coming out. So please keep an eye out for that. So this question is going to be for Sanjay, if you don't mind. You know, there was COVID and lots of different moving parts and pieces for this legislative cycle. So I'm sure it was like nothing else you've ever seen before. If you could just kind of give us in a couple minutes a big broad stroke, so kind of what happened through that and what that meant for CAR and some of the things we were pushing, and maybe even just a guidance because of that legislative cycle, what will CAR be using as a strategy moving forward in this next upcoming cycle?
Yeah, so this, as you mentioned, was a unusual year. I mean, that's true for everybody and everything. The legislature is no different. So what the big consequence this year was certain bills. For example, we had a number of sponsored bills, and this was not just CAR, but a number of groups. We had a number of sponsored bills on various topics, and I'll use an easy one to illustrate what happened. We had one, for example, that would allow somebody who gets married to continue to use their previous name in their realtor advertising, right? Very logical, straightforward. We're not expecting anybody to really oppose that, but it needs legislation. Those kinds of bills, which were not directly COVID related or even tangentially COVID related, were kind of eliminated this year. So a number of bills from all sorts of groups were taken out of circulation and will be returning this year. We're going to reintroduce all those bills this year. So there's probably going to be a fairly large bill load coming in because a lot of these will just be postponed. They were just taken off the table because the legislative schedule was impacted by COVID. For a long time, they weren't meeting. When they did, even there would be breaks because of a COVID outbreak. And so just very complicated year. So bills were winnowed away. And so that was one big consequence of this year. Something else we saw, which I'm sure this is going to continue to happen, but it retained particular urgency this year, was, of course, because of the crisis and the resulting economic dislocation, is all sorts of proposals for primarily tenant relief, although there have been some attempts to add a landlord component to that, but primarily for tenant relief, many of which are, frankly, were extremely, very extreme. Sacramento, I don't believe on the local level has seen what we've seen in Los Angeles or San Francisco, where basically I think, and I'm not, this is not 100%, but I believe like in Los Angeles, you don't have to pay rent during the COVID emergency as declared by the city, and you don't have to pay it back until 15 months down the, I mean, it's extreme, and it's being challenged in court, by the way. So we saw a number of eviction, you're gonna continue to see this next year, a number of eviction relief type bills. And as you know, AB 3088 in the end did pass, but that was by far the least worst of the bills. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, that bill is a short-term measure, and there absolutely is gonna be some other form of eviction relief or tenant relief bill coming forward. And there's gonna be a lot of contention and negotiation over that. That's almost certain. There's a lot of uncertainty because you could tell when there was discussions over 3088 that they're expecting federal, they're hoping for some federal money to come into the state, because otherwise the state is in very bad fiscal situation. So there is some hope for that. But also, and I always joke about this, that there's also federal, we also have to now watch federally, that's not my purview, but Matt Roberts and NAR on this eviction issue. As you know, there is a national moratorium on evictions that just came out of the blue from the CDC, which is basically the federal administration. I jokingly say, thank goodness that happened after 3088, because had it happened before, I'm sure they would have been like, wait, if even the feds are doing this, we got to go further than that one, you know, because that, wow, if even the Trump administration saying no evictions, you know, this is California, we got to go way further than that. But there's going to be definitely discussion. So rental issues are going to continue, housing issues, all of this is going to continue into the next year. The one big area we're kind of concerned about, which didn't happen much this year, is taxes. Because the state needs revenue, service tax, transfer tax, vacant, you know, a lot of these horrible ideas that are percolating on the local level, we're a little nervous about, will they try them on state level? Will they try for a state vacant land tax? Will they try for a state and service tax, of course, we're very worried about.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that overview. And we definitely will keep you updated on what we see on the local level so you can have more information on all the battles.
Yeah.
So next, I'm going to shift gears to, you know, Prop 19 is sponsored by CAR, which is coming up in the election. We had a lot of our members that were really helpful in gathering signatures and have been active on social media, but you know, throwing questions out there if there's any questions that members you may have. But if one of you is able to just give some broad overviews about, you know, where we're at with the campaign, how things are going, and maybe some of the highlights and some of the questions you've gotten from other members. And, you know, we have a lot of members that are active and out talking to their clients and everyone. So maybe just an update on where the talking points are and things that are happening and moving in the campaign.
Sure. The campaign is going very well. We have developed a very broad coalition of support that seldom comes together to move an initiative forward. And that includes folks on the Democratic side as well as the Republican side. And we're very proud of that because it is not easy to do that. You know, and the initiative contains two main provisions, as you all know. One is it allows tax portability to homeowners 55 years of age or older, as well as wildfire victims and people with disabilities. And then it also allows people who inherit a property to keep the property tax base if they decide to keep it as a primary residence. In the summary, that's what it is. It's two main provisions. And then the money that is raised from Proposition 19, Prop 19 does say it allocates resources to fight wildfires, as well as underfunded fire districts. We heard a lot of feedback from counties that a lot of them were worried that many folks would not choose to move into their counties once we opened up portability statewide. And so there is a pocket of money that was saved for counties who can point directly to losses from Prop 19 to be able to access those funds in case it can point to losses. But I can tell you that based on the analysis we've conducted, we don't believe anyone at the local level will be losing any revenue. In fact, Prop 19 is going to be raising money not only for local governments and schools. And so we made that fund just to reassure counties that we have them covered, but we think that it'll be a revenue generating initiative. Oh, and I'm sorry, the campaign. Yeah, we have, and you probably have seen the commercials out there. I know that every time I turn on the TV, I see not only Prop 19 commercials, but you see the Prop 15, the split roll, you see the dialysis clinic, and so they're usually back to back to back. We have purchased about a $15 million media buy statewide, and so it's available in all major media outlets. Those have been complemented by digital ads as well. So if you are not watching TV, but you're using other forms of media, including social media networks, you may have seen some of our ads there. Our polling shows that we are in a pretty strong position to win the initiative. We see that as soon as voters learn about what our initiative does and the benefits that it provides, our support goes all the way up to the mid-60s range. Messaging from our opponents does decrease support, but we don't expect that they will have significant enough impact to fail the initiative.
Great, thank you. So what that message is to our membership is let's keep our foot on the gas and keep going and talking to our clients. And I'm sure the membership is really tired of hearing me say that they need to make sure to vote. So, which there'll be more to come on that later. Carter, do we have any questions specific to Prop 19 in the questions?
Not in the Q&A thus far, or we might have seen. Okay, so Scott asked this, but I'm going to ask something about Prop 19 first. So I know a lot of people have asked, and this keeps coming up, and so I was hoping you guys could cover it, why the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has come out in opposition.
You know, I think that's a good question for Howard Jarvis. We were very surprised by their opposition. And the reason why we are surprised is because when you look at the things that John Kupal has said publicly, particularly in an LA Times article where Jeff Bridges was featured, and the fact that Prop 158, as passed by the voters, did not have the intent to do what it is currently doing, we were just surprised to see that he wouldn't go along to change it the way that the voters initially wanted to implement the inheritance benefit. And so when we saw the opposition, you know, we saw it not only politically, but also as we were going through the legislature. But despite that opposition, Assembly Republican leaders were supportive of our legislative alternative, and we have been able to get supports from various Republican county committees and taxpayer groups that are not Howard Jarvis. And so we think that there's a lot of good policy there. In fact, when we were kind of going back and forth with Howard Jarvis about why they were opposing, you know, their legislative director at the time didn't think that that was a position that they should be taking. In fact, he felt so strongly about it that he left Howard Jarvis and is now working with Prop 19 campaign to help pass it.
Wow. So thank you for that. I think that's a really great answer, and I know it keeps coming up, but you know, It's hard to understand. I would also follow up. Could you maybe discuss a little bit more? I know there have been a lot of specific questions we get about the intergenerational transfer piece and kind of the limitations and kind of holistically the specifics of that.
Sure. Well, the intergenerational transfer allows people who inherit property from parents or grandparents to keep the property tax base only if they keep the property as a primary residence. Under current law, primary residency is not required of properties that are inherited. And so we are restricting it only to folks that use it as a primary residence. Why would we engage in such a change? Well, when we first tried to get tax portability in 2018, one of the recommendations that came out of the Legislative Analyst's Office, and the Legislative Analyst's Office is a nonpartisan office that's tasked with providing recommendations to the legislature. And at that time, they came out with a report and said, legislature, the state is missing out on a lot of revenue. You should eliminate this tax inheritance benefit completely, and you can have significant amount of resources. So let's say CAR doesn't engage at all in this issue. What happens? If we don't engage in this issue, or let's assume Prop 19 fails, the first thing the legislature is going to do is completely eliminate the inheritance tax benefit. So the way we see it is we are protecting the ability of heirs who want to keep the family home to keep it and maintain it affordable for that purpose. That was the intention of Prop 158, and we at least want to be able to protect those folks.
Thank you. We did have a question about where the $15 million for ads come from.
Sure. The $15 million for ads and everything we're spending on the campaign comes from the board of directors. There was a budget approved for signature gathering, and additionally, after signatures were gathered, the board of directors approved $30 million budget actually for Prop 19 campaign. We've only spent about 18.5 so far. Additionally, the National Association of REALTORS has contributed $4 million to the campaign as well.
Thank you.
I also see that there was a question about my favorite topic, which was lawn signs. We got a question about if there are Prop 19 lawn signs.
There are Prop 19 lawn signs, and I believe that they are currently being printed. And I know that the goal of the team is to get them out by this weekend, if not early part of next week. As you can imagine, print houses and mail houses right now with the election are also very bombarded. And so we have been having a challenging time finding someone that could actually deliver, but we finally have. And so those should be on their way pretty soon.
Okay, and I think now that it's been brought up, I think I recall that. So Kathy, if you just want to shoot myself or Carter an email, we'll make sure you get on that list and get one once they're received. The other question that came up, it says, at what rate will they be taxed? But we might need a little bit more information. I don't know if that's related to the intergenerational transfer, but I just assume would be on the reassessed rate of the home.
It may also refer to portability, so we might need more information.
Rico, could you maybe put a little more detail in the question? Well, before we get to that, sorry, I think I lost track of where we were. We had a question about what about properties that are in a trust?
So that gets into a part of the law that Prop 19 does not change at all, meaning that Prop 19 does not say if trust should be treated differently, and it really depends on how the trust is designed. And so there isn't a blanket answer to be given about, you know, whether trust will allow you to, you know, not be reassessed. It depends on how the trust is set up, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a way to avoid reassessment.
That one's a little bit complicated. Carter, do we have more detail in the Q&A box?
About a trust.
Or Rico's question about the reassessment. While she's looking that up,
Properties that are being inherited. He just wants to, I think he was just curious about the intergenerational transfer piece.
Okay, well, the intergenerational transfer allows people, as I mentioned, to keep the tax base only if they live in it. There is a cap of $1 million over the assessed value. Based on our analysis, that covers about 95% of properties in the state. The top 5% of properties are in the high income areas. San Francisco, maybe a lot of coastal properties, San Diego, the highest income areas, those type of properties would not be covered. But if you're wondering whether a property may be covered and receive the benefit, 95% of the properties in most communities will be able to use the benefit.
Someone just texted me a question as well about how will the portability affect the market and will it free up homes?
So thank you for that question. And by the way, politically, we learned from 2018 and promoting Proposition 5 that we can't be out and telling the voters, this is going to generate so many sales, because the voters see that as a selfish initiative. But yes, this initiative will generate a lot of transactions. By very conservative estimates, we are looking at about 60,000 new sales in the first year only. Those are very conservative estimates. Let me tell you why. That's an estimate by the Legislative Analyst's Office. And what they did is they only took a look at seniors that were leaving their property and buying a new home. So they're only looking at the purchase side. They didn't even consider that those seniors are leaving homes behind, and someone else is going to come in and purchase those properties. So we really think that the estimates about how many sales it will generate are very undervalued. And so we think that home sales will be significantly up just based on these changes. The other thing to know is that the tax portability portion, the way it works is the same Prop 60 and 90 work, which means that when Prop 19, if it passes and it goes into effect, then people who purchased their home in April of 2019 can still seek the benefit. So regardless of how you may feel about what the policy does, if it passes, you should be aware that there are going to be a lot of clients who purchased in April of 2019 who have to hurry up because they'll have a 2-year window only, and they will be able to apply for that benefit only for the month of April in 2021. So it is important to make sure you educate them. Once this passes, we're going to also put a campaign together to make sure all realtors are aware of what the changes are, and also some information that you can send out to your clients.
And if I could, I just want to chime in that the estimates that Liza referred to are also pre-COVID estimates, right? A lot of people are seeing already decisions to move based on their experience with the pandemic. People wanting to move closer to family, closer to medical care, away from maybe a more dense area to a slightly more roomier area. Sacramento area, where at least I live in Folsom. I can definitely see in my little subdivision people coming in from the Bay Area who I think, because also the flexibility with work that seems to be developing. So it's possible you're going to get a lot more movement than even anticipated by the LAO, especially again for the medical care and family reasons that people might be wanting to move and now would be incentivized to do so.
Sanjay. So this one's going to take a little bit of a shift. Prop 21, we had a question about Prop 21. CaliforniaGlobal.com is posting on Facebook to vote no on Prop 21. Who's funding them and why? So if one of you is able to just give some broad, a broad overview on what Prop 21 is, and then so any insight you have to that.
Yeah, we post Prop 21, and which is the which is yet another attempt from the AIDS Healthcare Foundation to this time not outright repeal Costa-Hawkins, but significantly modify it. So we actually, as an organization, also opposed Prop 21. With respect to California Globe, I'm familiar with them. I swear they must have some sort of association with Breitbart. They're like a far right group. But regardless of what their position is, we as an organization, various other business groups, and actually Governor Gavin Newsom all opposed Prop 21. So, and if you want me to talk about the substance of that a little more, that's fine as well. But
he froze.
Yeah. And so we have been in communication with the campaign all along the way, and we are working with a no on 21 to help move that forward. Based on all the polling, it looks like the opposition is very likely to prevail. And so we don't see Prop 21 passing based on what we're seeing now.
Great. Good tag teaming there. I like that. Just a little note too to everyone. I put in the chat box, I put Carter's email if you are interested in one of those Prop 19 lawn signs. Well, I think we are running out of time and I don't see any more questions. If anyone does have any further questions that you would like us to pass on to both of them, I'm going to give them each a minute or so if there's anything they'd like to say to us in closing. But thank you again for joining us during this really busy season, and please feel free to give us a few closing thoughts, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoy being here, and we're close, virtually and in person. So maybe one day we'll be there in person as well. I'm going to close off by saying two things. One is I see Cynthia's comments regarding the trust. What your tax assessor told you regarding trust and being able to protect properties under reassessment, I've heard that from a lot of people, but then again, it has to do with how particular trusts are set up, and we don't touch that law at all. So the best thing to do is to begin to talk to your trust attorney, your tax attorney, to see what can be done or not. At least you're fully educated. The other thing is, if you're watching a lot of news outlets or reading a lot of the newspapers, one of the things we are encountering with the LA Times and the papers is that they are recommending a no position on Prop 19. And what we're experiencing is a proposition that not only gathered a record number of signatures, over 1.5 million, a record in the state, but also a proposition that went through the legislature. That and many of you may have heard that a bill and the way laws are made is described as like making sausage. When you make sausage, there's going to be people that are not happy. And we not only get criticized by those major newspapers because they see the tax portability provision as a handout to senior homeowners who they see as rich people who don't need it. But we also get attack from people on the right, such as John Kupal, who say, you're raising taxes. So, the way we take that is we have sausage here with Prop 19. We've gone through a lot of vetting. Despite that, we have a lot of support. So not everyone is happy. And that really, I think, is the mark of good policy. And again, regardless of how you may feel about one position or another, we do think it's going to pass. And I strongly encourage you to become educated on what it does, because your clients are going to need to know how this may benefit them. So thank you again for having us, and vote yes on Prop 19. That's my commercial.
And I'll chime in on vote yes on 19. The other thing, which just to latch on to what Liza was saying about certain newspapers being opposed, it's interesting because the LA Times, et cetera, basically they don't like 13, right? And they see this, which it is, in many ways an expansion of 13. So keep in mind, a lot of those editorials are actually coming from the left, saying this is not, this they don't like 13 and this is expanding 13, and that's something they don't like. The only thing I'm going to chime in on is politically, next year could be a very challenging year in a lot of ways. We don't know for sure, but as I mentioned, we're a little anxious about tax issues, especially again, with a lot of stuff percolating up in the state's need for money, assuming there isn't a big federal windfall to take care of this huge budget deficit, which, as I think all of you know, the state cannot run a deficit, unlike the federal government. So when you get some calls for action, and next year there's going to be a bit of a revamp on the local mobilization efforts, please pay attention and get involved. So that's key, because you guys are the shock troops in a way for our efforts in Sacramento. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you again for the heads up, and we will definitely keep a lookout when this next legislative cycle begins. And again, we can't thank you enough for both of you being here and sharing that helpful and insightful information with us today. With that, Madam President, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Liza, Sanjay, Aaron, and Carter for a great informational panel. So now on to announcements. Guess what the next announcement is? CAR sponsored Prop 19 regarding tax portability, a proposition we worked hard to get onto the ballot. We need to finish this fight for Prop 19 with a final push by conducting a member-to-member phone bank. We're looking for volunteers to give just a couple of hours of their time to call other realtors and make sure they are planning on voting if they are able, and that they vote yes on Prop 19. You will do this from your own home, completely remote. Please contact Carter Nelson for more information. And from the Cantry, now that NFL is back, Cantry is hosting another meal pickup fundraiser on Thursday, October 22nd, in conjunction with the New York Giants and Philadelphia Eagles game. Who will win? Cast your vote with a build your own sandwich box for $20 per person. We've got a Philly sausage and pepper sandwich box that comes with potato wedges and fresh slaw. Or you could do the New York meatball Parmesan sandwich box that comes with a Caesar salad and potato wedges. Add cheesecake for dessert and you will be in heaven regardless of who wins. All proceeds benefit the Salvation Army. Order online at cantrydrive-through.eventbrite.com. Speaking of Salvation Army, the Cantry Committee has a video they would like to share. So Spencer, if you can cue that up, please.
Hello, Jeff Slotowicz, Cantry Chair for 2020. In a normal year, Cantry would be well into our holiday sales of raffle tickets and in the early stages of planning our annual crab feed. Doing the most good we can for the Salvation Army. But this isn't a normal year, and unfortunately, the need hasn't gone away, and in fact, has gotten more dire.
Hi, I'm Dave Tanner, CEO of the Sacramento Association of REALTORS. I cannot tell you how proud I am of the record of this association year after year in generously giving back to the needs of the community. For more than 30 years, the Christmas Cantry effort has commemorated the holiday season by bringing our Realtor and Greater Sacramento communities together in the spirit of service. While this year does not look like most years, we are counting on the generosity of our membership now more than ever. This year, in lieu of buttons, raffles, and most likely crab feed tickets, we're asking you to consider making a pledge before and or during the November 3rd Main Meeting as a part of what we call Pledge Day. No donation is too small. Donations can be made several ways. You can do an office collection, where you contact a Cantry committee member to request a collection envelope. During the pledging portion of the November 3rd Main Meeting, you can make your pledge. Or you can go directly online at sacrealtor.org/Cantry and make your donation there. But whichever method you choose to use, I hope that all of you will give within your ability so that we can continue to help others that are in greater need than ourselves. Thank you for your attention.
The Salvation Army is expecting to help feed over 4,000 families this holiday season, including more children than ever. Help us help them do the most good for our community and make a pledge between now and November 3rd. We are presently very far behind our goals of a $100,000 donation and need your assistance. Please help us in stepping up as we usually do as SAR members. Thank you from the entire Cantree team.
So if you have any questions about the October 22nd meal pickup or the November 3rd pledge day, contact Madison at mhall@sacrealtor.org. And from scholarship, time is running out to register for the Haunted Hustle. Register by October 16th and complete your run between October 17th and 31st. All participants will get a commemorative t-shirt. Contact Madison in the events department or a member of the scholarship fundraising committee to learn more. Visit sacaor.redpodium.com Haunted Hustle to sign up. I would recommend that you go to our SAR website. All of the information is posted about the scholarship committee as well as the Cantree committee. Now let's welcome back Erin Teague with a government affairs update.
Well, thank you, Judy. Most of my updates I think have been gone over this morning, but I will do a reminder and I will continue to be a broken record about this. So bear with me, Election Day is almost here. The deadline to register to vote, if you have moved or changed your name or need to re-register, the deadline to do so is October 19th. There is a ballot, a way to track your ballot to sign up for the ballot tracking. We've shared the link a couple times, and we will be sharing all this information in the voter guide that we put together on the information you need to vote, how to do it, where to find your drop box. Looks like Carter just shared the link to register to vote, and we'll get you the one to do the ballot tracking as well. Again, the SAR voter guide will be going out next week, and then we'll be doing a special edition of the SAR magazine that will have everything you need for the upcoming election on how to vote, and with the SAR voter guide, as well as information on where to find a drop box or a place where you can actually go and vote. If anything happens to your ballot, all the information you need will be in there. Carter and I will also be discussing it at the upcoming regional meeting, and then there'll also be a special weekly docket. So there'll be lots of information coming with all of the links that you need, all the information you need, and the positions that CAR and SAR are taking on the different ballot measures. I do want to just highlight one important thing. Well, two important things, but you should be receiving, all registered voters will be receiving a ballot in the mail. Ballots went out yesterday, so it should be coming anytime this week. If you don't have it today or tomorrow, just give it a couple days. I think the county registrar's office said it would be between 5 and 7 days. But if you haven't received it after that 7 days, please make sure to follow up, and we will provide you the links. And the other piece is there's been a lot of concern about putting things in the mail and how ballots are processed. I will say that California has done vote by mail ballots for a very long time. Sacramento County is a voter's choice model that we've done for an election before. So the process of doing this is very well versed. While some of you may be voting by mail for the very first time, please don't hesitate to reach out to Carter or myself if you have any questions. We'll be more than happy to help you with that. But the other piece is, if you have any concerns about returning your ballot in through the mail postal system, there are ballot drop box locations, and we will be happy to share that information with you. The ballot drop box locations went live yesterday. So if you get your ballot and you want to put it in one of those drop box locations, it does not go through the mail system. It goes through the county registrar's office. So there are no concerns about that. There are also early voting centers. Some of them open October 24th and some of them open October 31st. And you can find those through the county registrar's site as well. And we can provide you that information. But again, I just want to reiterate, if you don't feel comfortable putting your ballot in the mail, please use one of those drop box locations or early voting centers where you can drop off your ballot as well. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to Carter or myself. And we just want to make sure that there's a lot of local measures that are going to be really important this election cycle, rent control being one of them for the city of Sacramento. So we want to make sure that everybody, that SAR's voice is heard loud and clear with those races. So please, please make sure to vote. And that probably won't be the last time you hear me say it. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Erin. I also want to say once again, Proposition 19, that's the realtor's proposition. I mean, that's the core of what we do for our clients. So, and we get the benefit from it as well. However, I think it's important that we rally around Prop 19 and get the word out to our members as well as to our friends and family. I also want to thank the executive team, Kelly Swain, Aaron Stump, and Denise Ross Frankham. We have a couple minutes. If either one of you want to make a comment or add to something that wasn't mentioned in the meeting, feel free to do so.
Good morning, everybody. This is Kelly, your president-elect this year. Just really quickly, first, thanks for tuning in. It's important to have you guys engaged and listening to these meetings. And we've got about 100 of you on today in a membership of 7,000. That means you guys are the cream of the crop. So thank you for showing up and thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions and your engagement, because that's what makes all of us better. One little quick plug is that the CAR business meetings are happening right now. And you can log into your account on CAR and you can actually attend some of these meetings, maybe for the first time, because they're virtual. So take advantage of this opportunity and check it out. Check out what we are doing at the state level and how this is going to help our communities. So thanks again for engaging, and we really appreciate it.
And just to piggyback on what Kelly said, I'm Denise Ross Frankham, your immediate past president. In addition to the CAR business meetings, which it's a great idea to attend some of those and find out what's going on, Reimagine, which is what used to be called the Expo, is also going on virtually. They have a ton of really high quality trainings. And unlike normal times, you don't have to pay for them. So absolutely go on and check that out and, you know, sit in your pajamas and learn something great about building your business.
And I guess since everyone else has said something, I'll just say hi. But I'll also just point out as well that CAR may take a position on another ballot proposition that we did not discuss today. So it's really important that you guys pay attention to announcements that will be coming out, you know, probably after Friday when the CAR Board of Directors meets, because if we do take a position on another ballot proposition, you'll definitely want to know about that and cast your ballot accordingly. So just stay tuned for an announcement perhaps in that regard after Friday.
Thank you, exec team. And I want to send a special shout out and thank you to Rico Rivera. Rico offered $250 for the can tree. So thank you, Rico, for kicking that off. And again, I want to thank Sanjay and Liza for attending and giving us the information that they did. And I want to thank you for attending the 100 people that are out there that are our cream of the crop. Our next main meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November the 3rd, which will be our annual membership meeting. We will keep you updated on our website, weekly email, Facebook, so keep your eye on them. It's also November the 3rd of election night. I'm glad it's our meetings in the morning because I will probably be drinking in the evening. So thank you all and have a great day and take advantage of getting on with Reimagine. Go to CAR and put yourself in for that. Kelly put it into the chat. So take advantage of it. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks a lot and have a great day.